Hello, good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. Great to have you with us, and welcome to Low Season Traveller Insider Guides, where I'm your host. My name's Jed Brown. I'm the founder and CEO of Low Season Traveller, and it's great to have you with us. This is our second episode in this mini-series on Africa. So we're featuring in particular Southern Africa, and last week many of you will have joined us for our sojourn into South Africa, where we went to Kruger and we went to the Western Cape. And this week we're heading over to Botswana. So first of all, we'd like to give a shout out to our very generous and kind sponsors, which are the guys at Africa Roam. We're really delighted to be working with Africa Roam on this series. For those of you that don't know, Africa Roam is a renowned African tour operator offering travelers access to some of the continent's most exclusive and unique experiences, from unattainable culinary opportunities to behind-the-scenes access to art and culture, adrenaline-based adventures, access to the top safari guides, or the majesty of the natural wonders. The team at Africa Roam tailors every trip to exceed their guests' requests. So Africa Roam are our very kind sponsors for this series, and we're delighted to have them with us. Please do feel free to check out their website, africaroam.com, and you can see a whole variety of the kind of trips which they organize to places including, of course, Botswana. So I thought, first of all, to start us off, what we do is have a little bit of a look at an overview of Botswana, just so that we can all understand the wonderfully rich country which we're going to be talking about today, and then we'll bring on our guest afterwards. So first of all, let's show you, if I can get it to work, a little bit of an overview to Botswana.
The days seem dark, nights take forever. When skies seem grey, Mother Nature seems to hold us at bay. Remember, with night comes light, with the rain comes life. Our Mikoro may float lonely, our safari vehicles parked and ready. Our people wait, practicing our welcome songs, yearning for your arrival, for it is their survival. While Mother Nature rejuvenates herself, breathing after so long. And yes, she will embrace us again, and we can embrace her again. As we rise to the mighty lion roar, and once again walk tall amongst the elephants. Quenched from purified streams, looking upon her unpolluted night skies, and gaze upon her million stars. Despair not, my people. Our Mikoro will once again glide our blue waters. Our safari vehicles will go on an adventure, and our guides will walk with you amidst our singing bands with their sweet melodies of rejoice. For after all, they are our lasting voice. For the moment, let's keep our promise. Stay home. Rejuvenate your soul, your spirit, because before long and soon, we will once again traverse the lands of this mighty Botswana, a place that we call home, with a caring and a loving heart. And we shall call her Mother, and it shall be as it was meant to be.
Fantastic! What a wonderful introduction to this country that we're going to be talking about today. So, of course, we have our regular guest who's going to be helping us to understand a little bit more about Botswana today. We're delighted to bring you yet again our fast becoming our resident expert in all things Southern Africa, and that's of course the great Warren Pearson. Warren is a specialist naturalist guide, an explorer, a photographer, indeed a fellow of the Royal Geographical Society, and some of his projects have included those with Animal Planet and National Geographic as well. So let's bring Warren in. Warren, are you there? 3, 2, 1, and there you are. How are you?
Hi, Jed. How you doing?
I'm very good indeed. You look a bit chilly there, Warren. Describe for our audience where you are and what's the weather like.
I'm at home at the moment. It's a tad chilly. Yeah, we've got quite a big storm that's just hit us last night and today. So it's raining quite a bit. The winds are pumping, and yeah, I've got my nice warm clothes on. You look like you're enjoying summer.
Yeah, well, you know, our summer's probably the equivalent to your winter, if I'm being fair, but it's not too bad. I can't grumble. It's always interesting, though, to me. I think, you know, a lot of people, they don't think of Africa as being a cold place, and of course, down in South Africa, it can get quite chilly, right?
It can get very chilly. Actually, I heard from a colleague of mine that it's actually snowing in parts of the southern Kalahari, which is where we're going to be talking about today. But yeah, I think it's probably just very light snow, probably more like sleet. But that just gives you an idea that, yeah, we've had this massive cold front that's come across the country. It's gone all the way up into Namibia and the southern sections of Botswana. So it gets chilly.
Yeah, fair play, fair play. So today we're talking about Botswana. We're moving on from South Africa. So I suppose let's try and build a picture for anybody out there that isn't familiar with Botswana. First of all, geographically, where are we talking about here?
It's a landlocked country directly north of South Africa. On its western border, it has Namibia. On its eastern border, it has Zimbabwe. So yeah, just to give you an idea, it's classified in Southern Africa. It's primarily, a lot of people refer to Botswana as just a desert, which it gets to me a bit because it's not. There's so much to Botswana. It has a large portion of the Kalahari, which is in Botswana. But we can get more to exactly the definitions of deserts and the Kalahari and all that side of things as we go along the talk today. But it's a country I love. It's honestly, it's just to give you an idea. I mean, it's a size. It's a country with a similar size to France. You've got a picture up there in the United States there. It's similar size to Texas in effect. And there's the other one with just regards to Europe, how big it actually is. If you look at that country's size, and the thing that what really gets to me and what I love about it is it has literally just over 2 million people that live in Botswana, so 2.3 million people. You know, it's Africa's oldest and most successful democracy. It was a British protectorate during the colonization of Africa almost 100 years ago. And yeah, it's just had a fantastic run of. It was once really seen as sort of, how can I say it, the almost the basket case, for better use of a word, in African countries, and it's now seen as the bread basket. You know, they've done really well from a tourism perspective. They've got a fantastic. Diamonds are actually one of their largest exports and parts of the economy. Cattle farming is another large one. So it's a country that, for me, it's on the up and and it's got a bit of bad press of late, of all sorts of different reasons. But if you look at it from a long history of African countries, to me, it's a place that you definitely want to come and visit.
Fantastic. I hadn't realised just quite how vast it is. And when you say the populations, do you say 2 million?
It's just over 2 million. I think the last stats I've got is 2.3 million people.
Yeah. So, you know, pretty. There's got to be quite a few wide open spaces, I would guess, in Botswana. Again, when you look at it, the size compared to France as well.
There are a lot of wide open spaces.
For sure. Let's have a look. There was you very kindly sent us in another photograph, which I absolutely love. Let me stick it up here now. And this is, I'll make it larger actually. This is a photo of, well, you tell us.
Well, this is probably one of the most well-known parts of Botswana, and it's a place that we will be talking about, but there are a lot of other places. But that's a picture from the International Space Station of the Okavango River, and you can actually see the two river systems that come from the north, which is in Angola there, and then it comes down south and comes into the Okavango Delta. And this is the one system or river system in the world that actually doesn't flow to the ocean. It actually just flows into the sands of the Kalahari. And as it's sort of where you see it sort of fanning out like that, it's incorrectly called a delta. It's actually called an alluvial fan, if I really want to be pedantic about it.
Yeah.
But if you look very closely on the very bottom section of that photograph, you can see a line of water, and that's a fault line. And that is literally what's caused this river to fan out and literally slow down and literally just sinks itself into the sands of the Kalahari. And right down at the bottom of that picture, you'll see some whitish sand. That's actually the Makgadikgadi salt pans. That's the start of it. That's the northern section of it. And I'd love to talk more about that, because that's also a very unusual place to go and visit, and a place I would definitely recommend most people to go and visit on their trip to Botswana. It's actually the remnants of an ancient super lake that is, I think it's, if I stand correct, but it's probably about 30,000 square kilometers big.
Wow.
Which makes it one of the largest salt pans in the world.
Yeah. Wow, that is just something else. So we're talking about, quite a diverse landscape throughout Botswana. Obviously, it's a vast country, but it must be, there must be a number of different sort of types of, I guess, terrain that are there. I mean, it almost looks like, is it sort of like, would you describe those almost like floodplains? I mean, the fanning out area there.
The fanning out, you can look at it as it's almost like a swamp, if you want to better use of a word. It's a massive inland delta system, and it swells with the floodwaters when they come in during our winter, which is right now. And then in our summer, the floodwaters recede. And it's literally, I compare it to this heartbeat happening, of this heartbeat of water pumping in, and then it slowly recedes out and slowly comes back in again. So you get a lot of wetland, you get a lot of water. It's really hard to explain it, because it's not what people would really expect of a dry, landlocked country. It's in the wet season, it's very, very wet, and there are certain sections even in the dry season where the water will always be there, but not as much as obviously when the floodwaters come down.
Yeah, fair enough. You mentioned before in the sort of introduction there that we have to sort of be upfront about it. Botswana has been in the news very recently. So again, for the purposes of the podcast, which comes out, we're recording this on the 13th of July, 2020. Botswana has been in the news recently because Botswana has got one of the largest populations of wild elephant in the world, right, Warren? And there's been let's show people. Let's show everybody the clip, actually, if we can. Let me bring it up here. I just want to show everybody, and I just want to warn you: some of these images can be a little bit disturbing, but it's just important, I think.
Aerial sides or face down in the Okavango Delta. Botswana's government says they started dying mysteriously in March. They've counted 275 carcasses so far. The National Park Rescue says the actual number of dead elephants could be more than 400.
Whenever they went out, they would see more and more elephants dead, and also ones that were ill and walking around, about to die, apparently. And it seemed they were even dying very suddenly in some of the cases. The carcasses were animals that had fallen down while walking.
With their tusks intact, Botswana's government says there is no evidence of poaching. The conservationists warn against ruling anything out, including COVID-19.
We haven't ruled out that it was poison laid by poachers. So they've certainly not been shot or speared, but it's a possibility that it's a poison of some form. There's also a possibility that it's a natural toxin, something occurring in the soil or the water, or that it's a disease of some form. And until those results come back, then.
So it's talk us through. You're obviously sort of closer to this than most. What's the latest on that at the moment? That clip was from actually just under 2 weeks ago, Warren. Yeah. But we've sort of seen it on the news. Certainly, we've seen it here in the UK, and I'm sure it's been in other parts of the world. And it's kind of, it's concerning. So, talk us through, what's the latest and what's been happening with this.
Yeah, Jed, it's very distressing indeed. And to be honest with you, no one really knows right now what is happening. What they have eliminated is poaching, anthrax, as well as any sort of typical organophosphates have been ruled out. And that's just because, the ivory hasn't been removed from any of these elephants. There's been no secondary poisonings that have happened. My guess, and that's just me personally, and I'm not a scientist in any form, but it could be related to something from the extreme drought conditions from last year. There could be nutritional stress happening with them. There could be secondary plant compounds that could be affecting them. Who knows? It's really, we don't know. And we will only know when the test results come back. And I know that the Botswana government has sent out test results, I think, to Zimbabwe, South Africa, and I can't think of one other country at the moment. There is another country. And they've got the test results back from Zimbabwe. They are waiting for the test results back from South Africa before they do release a press statement on exactly what has caused this. And I think only those test results will be able to tell us what is going on. But it's very distressing indeed. And if you look at it, a bigger picture, it's not a lot of elephants. I mean, I know it is a lot, but in the bigger scheme of things, you got an elephant population of close on 130,000 elephants in that ecosystem. But still, if it's affecting these elephants, it could actually spread to a lot more if it is a bigger concern. So we do wait to hear the results.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, definitely. It's a big worry. In terms of, with elephants, and again, for, a lot of our viewers and listeners out there, they might not be as familiar with elephants. We all know that elephants exist. Talk to us a little bit about, why are elephants, such curious creatures? Why are they absolutely worthy of our attention and of our protection?
First of all, I mean, for me, an elephant, it's a sentient being. It's, if you get to watch elephants long enough, and I'm very fortunate that I've been able to watch them for many, many years, and you watch their behaviors and you watch their mannerisms and you watch individuals, how they grow up within the herd. You just watch the herd structure, you watch how the females, and it's a matriarchal-led society, and, how the mothers and the aunts and the sisters, how they look after each other. And then you talk about the communication of elephants. They communicate in so many different ways that I think there's still parts of communication, or elephant communication, that we don't even know about yet. We've had certain ideas, and we do know certain ways that they can communicate, but I think there's a lot we don't really know. But it's an animal that, I mean, this example always pops up into my mind when someone thinks about this. And many years ago, when I was guiding at a lodge, we came across an elephant herd, and there was this young elephant that had a deformed pelvis. It was born with a deformed rear pelvis, and sort of its back legs were bow-legged in like that. Okay. And this elephant literally couldn't walk. And with a young elephant calf, you're always going to get a helper, which is an elephant a couple of years older than that will assist it as it grows up, almost like a kid babysitter. Yeah. And this helper was sticking its trunk underneath the back legs of this deformed elephant, and every time it had to walk, would pick it up and move with it as it would walk. And I watched this herd walk across a clearing in front of me in this open area, and we watched that elephant. We didn't think it was going to survive. It was probably about 3 months old at the time. We didn't think it was going to survive another month or two. And this elephant survived for close on 7 years. No. Sadly, this elephant, the deformity didn't get any better. We thought maybe it would have, but just these elephants helped each other. And the immediate maternal herd broke away from their initial herd just to slow down and stick with this young elephant. And, they go back to a member that has been, it's died of natural causes or whatever it might be, and you can see them sniffing it and sniffing the carcass and sniffing the skull. You can see there's a memory, and if you get close enough to look into an elephant's eye, it's just your heart sits here, not because you've got this massive animal there, but you just look at it looking at you. And I'd probably think it'd be the same if you looked at a whale's eye. If you get that close, it studies you and it looks at you, and you can just see it's such a gentle giant. And I get quite upset when I hear people talk about rogue elephants and animals like that, because they're not naturally rogue. They're not naturally aggressive. They're probably one of the most gentlest of animals that I've ever come across. You just don't want to get them angry.
Yeah, which is fair enough, really, as well. But it's incredible though how you describe them. And I've sort of heard it said before about how that they grieve almost, or it seems like they grieve for any of their members that have passed away. And it does then make me think that this for the elephants that are surviving the current situation must be incredibly traumatic for those to have to watch members of their herd or whatever being dying and falling over in this way.
Absolutely. I mean, I've often thought about these recent deaths and the communication that goes out, and it has been proven that elephants send signals down through their feet into the earth, and that can travel miles of kilometers. I mean, it's over. I think someone said one time it can go probably over close on 50 kilometers to 100 kilometers away.
Wow.
And you think of elephants in that vicinity that is picking up on this, what they are reading into and what they're hearing about what these elephants are going through. There is definitely a distress. I'm sure of it. It has to happen. It's something that is, it saddens me, but we wait to see what happens.
Yeah, in that way. So obviously, we said before at the outset that Botswana has got one of the largest populations of elephant anywhere in the world. So is that one of the things which Botswana is the most famous for when we're talking about safari tourism, wildlife tourism? Is that one of the main drivers of that tourism to experience the herds of elephant?
I'd probably say no. I'd probably say the first and foremost thing would probably be the Okavango Delta.
Yep.
Just with it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The elephant herds it's definitely a draw card, and I think that tourism marketing has definitely pushed that. Them saying, listen, we've got 130,000 elephants. They don't say they're only in Botswana. That's an open system. So these elephants do move between Zimbabwe, Angola, Zambia, Namibia, the surrounding countries. And so it's not like you're going to see a massive, massive herd of elephants of that size. But yeah, when the waters do drop, in particular along sort of the Chobe, Savuti, Linyanti area, which is that very northern section of Botswana, if you're there, and this is the great thing about the low season, when the waters recede, not many people want to sort of go there. They want to go when the waters there. But when the waters recede, you can get massive herds of elephants. And these maternal groups of elephants all coming together. And I've seen herds of probably close on 1,000, 2,000 elephants together in one massive area, which it's mind-blowing to see. It's unbelievable. So the elephants it's definitely a spectacle, but it's something that I would say that there's I think it's come down more to tourism marketing than anything else.
Yeah, the tourism guys know how to market. I give them that.
Exactly.
Something that that's always fascinated me, and again, I'm acutely aware that I'm incredibly ignorant about this, and maybe it could be a question that some of our viewers might pose as well. Is in my ignorance, I always thought a safari is a safari. So a safari in Kruger, a safari in Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana. Is there any great difference? I mean, a safari is a safari. Am I right or am I wrong? Obviously, I suspect I'm very wrong, naturally. But explain to me why I'm wrong. Why is the safari experience and the wildlife experience so different in Botswana?
One word: diversity.
Right.
If you look at the diversity of Botswana. You have sand dunes, you have arid savanna, you've got huge, massive salt pans, you've got the largest inland delta. You've got, just the habitat changes from one place to the other. I'm not saying that Kruger doesn't change. I mean, Kruger is very linear. It goes north to south, and is slightly larger than Israel, just to put that into perspective. So it's a massive, massive area, but it is more uniform in sort of, there is diversity, but nothing quite like what you would get in Botswana.
Yeah, fair play. You've also shared with us some. You're a keen photographer, right? You do a lot of photography. I mean, you're in the perfect place for it. I could be a keen photographer in Rochdale, and it wouldn't be the same.
It's an expensive hobby, yeah.
What do you mean? You mean you don't just take these with an iPhone? I'm confused.
I wish.
But look, let's just show on. These are some of the photographs which you've taken, and I'm going to see if I can get these a little bit larger. There we go. Just talk us through some of these photos. We've got a few here which we'll show. Is this one as it seems?
Yeah, that is exactly what it seems. So this is actually in the Makgadikgadi salt pans, and I'm not a fan for animals climbing on people, to be honest with you, or any sort of animal interaction. But there's one thing about this little group of meerkats that sort of, it's a massive draw card to this area. And to be honest, if I can get people out to see this area, and if this has got to be part of it, then so be it. But these meerkats they've been habituated to people. They're not tame in any sense of the word. They're just habituated to having people walk and be around them. And meerkats, being fairly small animals, they always want to get the height advantage. They want to be able to see far. So if you allow them, they will often stand up on you and climb up on you and try and get perfect height advantage to see further. But this to me is just, it's more about, there's a lot more animals out there, and particularly very special animals, than just the big five, which is actually a term I don't like to use. But lions and leopards and elephants and wild dogs and the big animals that most people associate with Africa. There's a lot more smaller stuff around that I want people to see. And in, for example, the Kalahari, as well as the Makgadikgadi salt pans, it's a perfect opportunity to go look for these smaller animals of meerkats, of aardvark, of brown hyena, of bat-eared foxes, small animals which are really, really, they're special. They're unique to see. They're fantastic to watch. And if you have the time and the patience, spend time with them.
Yeah, I love I must admit, I love the meerkats. My daughter's also huge meerkat fans. They just think they're fantastic the way they stand up to look around, and very smart as well, aren't they? They're not daft.
It's quite interesting because most particularly British guests that come out to Africa say, well, hang on, I know a meerkat, it has a Russian accent.
Yeah.
And they talk about the advert.
Yeah, it always makes me. As an absolute side note, have you seen these adverts? Do you have them in South Africa?
I've seen them a few times, when I've traveled, but no, not in South Africa.
So they have this, again, for any viewers that are sort of watching this in the States or anywhere else around the world, they have these adverts. It's called Compare the Market is the name of the company, and they have meerkats, and it's Sergey and Olive, and they have them in speaking in Russian accents, speaking English but in Russian accents. And I was saying to my wife the other day, well, she said it to me, to be fair. She was just saying, if you gave them, if they were speaking English with a Chinese accent or a Jamaican accent, would it work? And you were just thinking, actually it really wouldn't. It would be a bit, it would be a little bit strange, but for some reason in a Russian accent, it's fine. But just that's a complete side note. The next one, again, continuing on with the smaller creatures, I guess. These are absolutely beautiful birds. What are these birds? And they're in the video as well, I think.
I think they were, yeah. There's a white-fronted bee-eaters. Just bee-eaters, white-fronted bee-eaters. And it's just the bird life to me in Botswana, and that's the other side of what a lot of people don't sort of think about first time they come. the bird life is spectacular. And in the low season, even more so. All the migratory birds are back. And, with these diverse habitats that you have, you're going to get a diverse species or range of bird species. So, yeah, they are a fantastic, beautiful bird, but there are many, many more like that.
Yeah, they're just so beautiful, and they look like they're not particularly small either, are they? What kind of size are they?
No, you do get a bee eater. It's called a little bee eater. It's a very original name. But so a little bee eater is probably, I don't know, I can't really give you a perspective, but a couple centimeters tall. But yeah, those are, I'd probably say they're the size of, it's hard to, I don't know which birds you'd get in the UK that you would recognize, but maybe the size of a blackbird, similar size.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Very good. This next photograph, talk us through this one. How did you come to take this one? Let me make it larger, because that's quite a stunning photograph you've got there.
We found this as a young male leopard, and he was very curious, and we followed him for quite a while, and he went and lay on this termite mound. So what he's lying on is actually a termite mound that's sort of, if I can say, attached to a tree. Mm-hmm. And he just decided to rest there. And the next minute, this elephant started to come in from the right-hand side, and we just waited. And that's probably the biggest advantage I could, or hint, I could give people coming to safari is patience. Just wait. Don't try and rush around too much. But we did. We waited probably close on an hour and a half to 2 hours for this elephant to get just into that shot. And I waited before the leopard moved pretty shortly after that, I'll be honest. But
really?
Yeah, it's that's in just on the edge of the Okavango Delta, and the wildlife viewing, low season, high season, it's like that. You just got to know where to look, how to look, and have great guides with you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked last week about the importance of the great guides as well with regards to these things. And like you said, I suppose for the keen photographers out there, well, I think any keen photographer knows, you've got to be patient. You've got to wait it out, and frequently you will be rewarded, but sometimes you won't be rewarded necessarily. Well,
I can guarantee you that probably 90% of the time you will be rewarded if you have that patience. And particularly, as I said, if you have a guide that understands and knows, is reading the situation correctly. I've had vehicles come, go, and if you wait, something happens. So, yeah.
I love that. Let's get the next one on. This is quite an interesting one. Again, we were talking about the elephant population there before. That gives an idea of the size. So is that a herd of elephants? Is that one group? Is that multiple groups? What are we looking at there?
That's what some people probably typically call a mega herd. It's a bunch of smaller maternal groups that have all come together. And as the waters recede and start sort of drying up, you get some of these larger herds coming together to get to the water sources. So, Botswana is well known. The northern section of Botswana is well known for very large elephant herds. As I said, typically during the low season. During the wet season, when it's all sort of there's a lot of water around, they do spread out quite a bit.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So the low season is more the dry season for Botswana, generally speaking.
It's quite confusing because the high season is in our winter, which is now. So that's any time from, let's say, May through to about August, October, and the low season would be the rest of the months. And during the high season, which is the dry time, it's cold, it's dry, but that's when the waters of the flood waters of the Okavango Delta come in. And that's what I'd probably say majority of people coming to Botswana want to go for and want to have a look at is the Okavango Delta. Yep. So the water levels in the Okavango Delta in the dry season are actually at their highest. And it's vice versa in the wet season. So in the wet season, the water on the delta is low, but you do get a lot more rain showers, and it's much more green and beautiful. We call it the green season. So it can get confusing from that aspect.
Yeah, fair play. But another great image though. And then this one now as well. This one This is great. So this is actually a piece of video footage. I'll make it larger now in one moment as we play it. But maybe you could then, in fact, as we play it, maybe you could talk us through how you came to take this footage and exactly what we're looking at and where we're looking at it. Let me get play on this. There we go. And by the way, I love how silent this video is. Everyone at home will be thinking he's got the sound turned off, but I haven't.
I almost don't want to talk.
I know it's.
So one of the activities that you can do in the Okavango Delta is what's called mokoros, and a mokoro is a dugout canoe. Basically, tribes in the area, the sand used to take trees and dig them out and cut them out, and so that they can actually use them to get across from island to island. This is an activity that we can use or we can do when there are water levels, in the delta. So we were just sneaking up onto a herd of elephants that were drinking, and it's something that unfortunately, in the low season, and this is the catch-22, a lot of people think that in the low season, when the waters recede, that the Okavango Delta dries up completely. It doesn't. The very northern sections of the Okavango Delta will still have permanent floodplain. So if the camps are chosen correctly where you want to go, you can still do those kind of activities. Obviously, during the high floodwaters and the peak season of the delta coming down, you can do that at most camps that are water-based or both offer land and water activities. So it's an adventure. I love walking in the bush. I love any activity where you don't hear a motorized vehicle. So being on a mokoro where it's literally two of you, or you have a polar, it's basically like you're in Venice with a gondola.
Yep.
And it's quiet, and you get to see small things. You get to see tiny little reed frogs, which are minuscule. You sneak up to elephants. You just get a complete different perspective of your surroundings and the nature that you are in.
It's the serenity of that piece. I played that video after you'd sent it through to me probably about 5 or 6 times, and it's just exactly that. It's the absolute serenity of it. It's the fact that it's so quiet, and you can kind of imagine that as you are getting relatively close to wildlife, you'd feel like you're not really disturbing them that much because you're being so quiet and stealthy.
Exactly. Quite an interesting thing happened with that video slightly after I stopped filming, but one of the polars at the back that was controlling the mokoro had a sneeze, but he held it in. That when you sneeze and you sort of keep it under your breath, and just that sound got the attention of one of the elephants on the side, and sort of his ears came out and sort of, okay, what's going on? I heard something that's not usual. So yeah, you have to be exceptionally quiet when you're doing something like that. And it was just great to see the behavior of the elephant. Yeah,
absolutely. And at relatively close quarters. And as well, the light, by the way, on this is just absolutely fantastic as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
You feel like you're seeing everything so sharply. But that's a great camera you've got, it must be said.
As I said, it's an expensive hobby.
Yeah, for sure. Now this next one, let me make that larger. What are we looking at here, and why did you take this particular image?
This I must be careful not to pun too many camps, but this is probably one of my favorite camps in Botswana, and it's in the Makgadikgadi salt pans. It's a camp that, for most people, when I say it's got no electricity, it's got no Wi-Fi, I really go, not for me.
Yeah.
That's the kind of place I like to go to. But yeah, it's got everything you need, and it's exceptionally beautiful. It's based on a 1920s, 30s East African sort of your typical colonial sort of East African mobile camps. But yeah, the reason I took this, it's on an island in one of the islands in Makgadikgadi salt pans, and the stars that night were just phenomenal. And I just like playing around with my camera. So we decided where the Milky Way galaxy was, and fortunately it was situated right above the camp. And we took off, myself and a client of mine took a few photos like that.
I love that. I mean, it's an incredible photo. We sort of touched again on that last week when we were talking about South Africa. But is there something, when we talk about the wildlife experience in places like Botswana and South Africa, and I suppose across the continent, is there something almost magical about the nighttime, about the evenings, and about that kind of a view there? I couldn't imagine. Well, I've never seen anything like that. These kind of skies that you can kind of guess, and I suppose being around a campfire. Is there that kind of stories around a campfire at the end of the day, and is there that kind of sort of feel as well on these kind of trips?
If I'm there, absolutely. And I'll say it because that's something that I personally have to have. For me, a camp is not a camp without a campfire, and it's, to me, be able to sit around a campfire in the evening or even early in the morning before you actually sort of, just as you've woken up, before you head out, that is key. And sadly, there's so many, and I don't want to be negative in any way, but there's so many camps around Africa these days that are, it's more of a production process of, okay, you come back from your safari, go and have dinner, go to bed, kind of thing. It's like, hang on, where's the campfire? Where's the drink? I need the gin and tonic. It's sadly forgotten, and there are very few camps that still will say, hey, come, listen, the campfire's going, let's go and sit around it. And so if I can have that, and I will always have that when I'm on safari, absolutely, because that is vital. It's part and parcel of it, and you don't even need to talk around the campfire. Part of it is just being quiet and just listening to the night sounds, looking at the stars, and listening to the crackle of the fire. It's spectacular.
Oh, there's just something very, very, I don't know, homely or warming about that. I mean, as well as anything else, I could just look into when you gaze into a fire, you can lose yourself as well, just looking at the flames sometimes as well.
Well,
and then
a lot of people here in Africa will call it bush TV.
Really? Yeah, I could get that, actually. Let's move on to the next one. This is, this one caught my eye because this is just a very, very different landscape to the kind of landscape that I was imagining in Southern Africa. What are we looking at here exactly?
So this, just to be open, this is not one of my photographs. Okay. But it's, it's a picture of...
You didn't need to say that. No one would have known.
I know, but I can't not do that. This is a picture of an island in Makgadikgadi salt pan. So what you're looking there in the background is the salt pan, and that's a baobab tree, which is very famous in Africa. Not that tree particularly, but the actual species, the baobab tree. But it's just this contrast of this ultra flat salt pan to these rocky outcrops that you get with these massive, beautiful, big trees. So as I said, diversity, and you just go from that video of us in the Makura in the water towards the elephants, and then you go to this picture. It's night and day. So diversity wise, it's a mind-blowing place to go and explore.
With these salt flats, I mean, first of all, by the way, I've got to say the baobab trees, I just think are the most beautiful tree ever. The way in which they have these really wide bases, and then the relatively narrow upper branches. I just think that visually they're just absolutely stunning. But when we look at these salt plains, is there any wildlife around there, or is there nothing really there at all in terms of wildlife?
So there is wildlife, but if you had to go out into the middle of a pan, no. There's nothing there. It's if I'm talking, you go smack bang into the middle, where if you're looking all around 360 degrees, you will not see a single other thing. It's literally just flat. But you do get islands closer to the edges of these pans, and on those islands you will get a lot of wildlife. And one of the best things about what I like about Makgadikgadi, and this is one of these, if I can say, insider tips, that and particularly during the low season, which I love, is that you get one of the largest, not one of the largest, I should say, longest mammal migrations happening. Everyone knows about the wildebeest migration up in East Africa that goes between the Serengeti Masai Mara ecosystem. But this migration is very long. It's just over 250 kilometers long, one direction. And that's of zebra. And you get thousands of zebras that gather in the southern floodplains of the Chobe area. And they migrate south into these Mahari pans on the edge. And it's just, that only happens in Botswana's low season, when the rains are around and most people don't want to be there. Accessibility can be quite difficult at times, getting in. But I've been there in the low season. I've seen these zebras come in, and it's spectacular. It's the noise level. In that video you played earlier, you heard the zebras calling, which is that wah, 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 wah. That happens all the time. And these Mahari soul pans it has a lot of animals. I've been seeing more lion there happening now. I think I sent you a few photographs of a lion pride walking through a salt pan. You get brown hyena, which is an exceptionally rare species of hyena to see. They're very shy animals. You don't often get to see them. The meerkats, which I've spoken to you about before, and if the conditions are right, you can get massive flocks of flamingos that congregate into these pans as well. So yeah, don't think there's no wildlife there. There definitely is.
Yeah, just need to know where to look, I guess, as well.
Exactly.
Do any of the wildlife? Do they do the wildlife in Botswana and Southern Africa? Do they need salt licks? Do they use the salt licks? Because the way some creatures need the minerals or whatever from salt.
So you'll find salt licks are often put out in areas where the soil has been leached quite badly, and that normally happens from previous overgrazing of areas, and typically from cattle or goats or something like that, where the soil hasn't really been well looked after. So there are certain areas, and they're more, if I can say, controlled areas, smaller areas, not an open system. Where the management of that area will put out a salt lick for the animals. And it's just, I don't like to call it a salt lick, it's more of a mineral lick because there are quite a few other mineral compounds that are in it. But no, there will be animals that will go and they will lick salt. So in the salt pans, for example, absolutely, you could find animals. A lot of the zebras and wildebeest that go down there will eat some of the grass that has salt on it, just to get a bit of a mineral intake.
Yeah, love that. As a side note as well, I will say the one time that I did do a safari experience, genuinely one of the highlights for me actually was seeing zebra, which surprised even me. But I just find them, again, visually, they're just absolutely stunning creatures. When you see quite a few in the wild, and the stripes are so vivid, they're just absolutely beautiful. And it's the fact that they're black and white against a contrast of a blue sky or the green surroundings. Something absolutely stunning about seeing zebras in the wild. Hey,
it's the one thing I love about the collective noun of zebra, because it's a dazzle of zebra.
Is it a dazzle?
It's a dazzle. It literally is dazzling. It's if you see a couple hundred, let alone a couple thousand zebra altogether, it is just an absolute spectacle to see, as you say, with all those black and white stripes contrasting against their surroundings. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, love that. The next image that we have, let me pop that up. Oh yes, so this one was, well, why don't you tell us what's going on here?
This is, I'm always going to get this pronunciation wrong, because it's a group of San, and a lot of people call them Bushmen, but the correct name is the San, and these are the original inhabitants of Southern Africa, and it's the Zoo. There's a click in it which I just cannot do for the life of me. Zuklasi Bushmen, or San, and to me, the one special thing about Botswana is being able to spend time with the local people and the local inhabitants. And if you go back thousands of years, hundreds of years in Africa's history, the original inhabitants of Southern Africa, all the way from the tip of Southern Africa up to some people have said sort of the Zambezi region, just north of the Zambezi. It was inhabited by the San and the Khoisan, and they were the pastoralists or the hunter-gatherers. And these are the original inhabitants of Southern Africa, and spending time and watching how they live in one with their surroundings and earth, it's humbling. It really is a humbling experience. And you spend some time with them, and one of the experiences which I really love to get people to enjoy is to spend not just a small little cultural interaction with them, but actually go and spend good and proper time, spending a day, with them, and go and walk with them, go track with them, go see how they hunt, see how they live, making fire, which you can see what they're doing here. And that's still the traditional way of, rubbing two sticks together and putting the little grains of sand in it just as a bit of friction to get the wood to ignite. It's such a humbling experience, and it's something that I think a lot of people forget about when they're going to Africa is, okay, I want to see the animals, but I think what brings people back is the actual people, of why they want to come back and see some more parts of Africa.
I love that, but to sort of to learn how people have lived and survived for eons actually, as well. On that one, we did, you very kindly provided us with a video showing exactly how they did it with the rubbing of the sticks, and unfortunately it was just slightly too large to get onto the platform, so unfortunately we had to make do with a photograph. However, the next one that you sent us again intrigued me, so we have the video actually on this one, so let me get this one up. And again, maybe you can sort of talk us through what's happening here. This is the San again, right?
So there are different, if I can say, I don't want to say tribes, but little family groupings of San Bushmen all over, mainly in the sort of the Kalahari section of Botswana, and this being a very dry land for most part of the year. I mean, people say they've got 300 days of sunshine and very little rain, but it's water is very scarce, and that's an ostrich egg which this gentleman has dug out from a bush that he knows very well. And when they're traveling and they're moving through vast areas of land, there's no water around. They can't carry water with them. It just makes things too heavy. So they literally have these ostrich egg shells that they've emptied out. They've got a little hole at the top. They often use beeswax to plug the hole so the water doesn't come out. They bury it in a location that they will remember. And when next they're passing through that area, it could be in a month's time, it could be in a day's time, it could be in 6 months' time, who knows? They know that under this tree there's an ostrich egg and it has water in. And all they need to do is dig it up, have a quick sip. They don't waste it. There's a very quick sip, share it with their colleagues, bury it again, and off they go.
That's just tremendous, isn't it? I love that. It reminded me when I first saw it of some of the indigenous people of Australia, and there's a tree, I forget the name of it. This tree that has it's got like the world's longest roots, and it's, again, you sort of get it in the outback where it's incredibly dry. But what they would do is they would tap it, and you can actually then put a stick in, and you get water coming out. But what they would always do, they would always be very, very careful to, and it's quite obvious really, but I suppose in our society, we're so selfish, we wouldn't necessarily do this, but they plug it back up afterwards as well. Because again, you don't want to waste it. And there's that, concept of, you don't waste, but also you're considering, the next traveler that might be along, whatever else, they also might need a drink. I just think that's just, they've got it nailed on.
When you spend time with people like this and you watch how they don't waste a single thing. Yeah. It just shows us how wasteful we are as a society, and it's, you think of the water crises around, and it's horrific what we do to the earth. And you look at what these people do and how they live, and you think, oh, hey, can they be happy? You won't see bigger smiles on people's faces. And they just know how to learn to live one with the earth. Yeah. It really is humbling.
and with each other as well. You know, again, what always strikes me is they're always incredibly considerate of everybody else. You know, of other travelers that might be coming by, and that I saw a program not so long ago in it was of the nomads in Mongolia, and again they're really tightly knit because it's quite a hostile terrain. You know, they recognize that, you know, if you go out on your own, you're not going to make it. You're not going to survive the winter.
Yeah.
But if you're all in it together and you all look out for each other, you know, obviously that's the way in which you can not only survive but also thrive.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love that. We've got another video, which is another wonderful one, which you can hopefully talk us through, if you don't mind. Let me get it up for you. And this one was just surprised me because this is actually quite loud. But anyway,
turn your volume up if you're watching.
Yeah.
I'll wait to talk until the end.
Yeah, fair play. So are they happy, or are they happy with you being there, or are they not happy? What's going on there?
They were happy. They couldn't care that I was there or not. Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, for me, you know, listening to one lion roar is amazing. To have an entire pride decide to open up, that the air reverberates around you, and it's you feel that it comes from the gut.
Yeah.
It's really special. But so yeah, lions call like that primarily for two reasons. One is to mark territory. So if there are any other lion prides around, they're literally saying, hey, hang on, listen, we're here. We don't want to fight, but don't come any closer. Or it's to contact other members of their pride that might have got lost or, you know, just separated from the original pride. So yeah, they were just there marking territory. That's what they were doing. But that was in the central Kalahari of Botswana, and pretty special place.
That's incredible, isn't it? What struck me about that, let's say that one time that I was on a safari, we'd got up really early and we'd had a breakfast, and we just heard not the roar of a lion, not too far away, but it was kind of like a growl almost. But what really struck me was I felt fear. I felt fear just from that growl. It was so deep, not sinister. That's the wrong word, but it sharpened my senses. It was a sound that will. Well, let's say I've only ever heard it once. It will stay with me forever. I felt the growl, if you know what I mean. It was, yeah, it was really no, but you know, it was. I think it's that sort of primeval, almost instinct that made me think that is trouble right there. You know, that's not necessarily direct trouble, but you know, as in, I felt like I was in the presence of something quite powerful.
No, absolutely, and that's exactly what it's there for. And it's the one thing I love about lions is that they communicate with you. You know, if they don't want you there, if they don't like you, if there's something that's upsetting them about your presence, or even if you don't know that they're there and you're approaching, they're going to talk to you. They will communicate. We've just lost the understanding of that communication. So having that short, sharp growl is probably them saying, "Hey, listen, back off. You know, don't come too close." I've had it a few times myself where it's kind of, you want them to do that. It's just like, okay, I appreciate you, I hear you, I'm going to back off now. But it is when they growl like that, it gets you in here, and it makes you feel very small.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I felt insignificant once I heard That's a tremendous video, though. We're getting towards the end of our time, unfortunately. God, it flicks over so quickly every week. Yeah. But what I did want to show was this one. Now, this is interesting. Talk us through what we're looking at. Obviously, an awful lot of people. Tell us about this.
So basically, with Botswana's primary way of working with tourism is high quality, low volume tourism. Mm-hmm. However, and this is what's made them so successful where they are in a tourism sort of space. However, there are sort of small little sections of Botswana that I want to say are sort of losing that kind of plot and understanding. And this is up in the northern section of Botswana, very close to the border of, we're sitting on the border right now. This photograph's taken on the border between Botswana and Namibia. Namibia being behind the camera, and you're looking at Chobe National Park in front of you. And this is on the Chobe River. And unfortunately, it's just a massive hotels have gone up along that riverbank. It's mass tourism and over tourism, and it's a sad thing to see because it's a spectacular part of the country. It's a spectacular part of Botswana, but sadly that is creeping in into certain parts. And funny enough, that picture you actually saw, you showed earlier of the leopard and the elephant, was actually taken in the high season, and we were the first vehicle to find that leopard. And when we turned around, we were so focused on photographing and videoing, and when we turned around, we just saw, I think there were 14, 15 other vehicles that snuck up behind us. So there are parts of Botswana, and if you don't know where you're going to have a lot of people. And sadly, this is something that I try and avoid at all costs. It's I don't think it's good for the environment. It's not good for the animals. And I don't know. I don't think it's good for the country in a bigger sense. So. Yeah, it's you got to be careful, and this is why going in the low season is even better, because you're not going to get this. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I think unfortunately, Warren, we are out of time.
Very quick.
No, it does. Well, the thing is, it's just so fascinating speaking to you. It just clicks over so quickly, unfortunately. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time today, and thanks as well for those photographs, which are absolutely stunning, and indeed the video, which was wonderful. And I think that's really sort of brought Botswana to life a little more for our viewers and for our listeners. So thank you very much for that. It's been absolutely an education. So thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure once again. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will of course see you next week. And yes. we are heading over to Namibia next week.
We are.
What kind of things can we look forward to in Namibia?
The second least densely populated country in the world. Oldest desert in the world. Largest sand dunes in the world. A coastline that has probably claimed more ships and sailors' lives than probably most coastlines around the world. It's big skies. It's just a very unique, different experience once again. So it's something to definitely tune into, because there's a lot of hidden secrets about Namibia that I think a lot of people push off and say, no, this is for another trip. But yeah, it's a very special place to visit.
Awesome. Well, really, really looking forward to that. Obviously, same time again next week. But thank you for now. We will let you go on that, Warren, to enjoy the rest of your day. But thanks again for being a wonderful guest and for talking us through Botswana. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being here.
Thank you, Jed. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. So that was wonderful. That was Botswana for this week. So I hope you all enjoyed that. We also would like to thank again our good friends at Africa Roam for supporting our series and allowing us to have Warren on the show. It's great to be working with Africa Roam, and again, I would emphasize, if you'd like to learn more about the kind of experiences that you can have in Botswana during the low season, please do visit africaroam.com. That is pretty much it for us this week. As we mentioned, next week we are heading over to Namibia, of course. Same times, New York, 9 o'clock, London, 2 o'clock. Madrid and Cape Town, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and Dubai, if you're over in the Middle East, there at 1700 hours. It'd be great to have you with us next week. We look forward to it. Until then, have a wonderful week ahead. Thanks a million.